The don'ts of suggestive selling. We now have a very good idea what to do right. But what about the don'ts of suggestive selling? In this lesson, we will look at a few examples of what not to do. Recommending the most expensive dish on the menu. You may think that this will ensure that you get a bigger tip because the bill will be bigger, but this is unacceptable. The guests aren't stupid. They will figure out that you keep recommending the most expensive drinks and dishes. They will lose faith in your recommendations and maybe never come back. Rather, offer the guest 3 options from which to choose. They would generally choose the mid-level price option. Not asking the guest questions about their preferences, thereby making completely irrelevant recommendations. This is not only irritating, but also a complete waste of time. The guests will feel just as lost as they were before you recommended anything. Making predefined recommendations. For example, the kitchen says that the fish will be off tomorrow, so everyone should push it for the evening. This means that every guest will get exactly the same recommendation, whether they're interested in it or not. The guest will get no value from your recommendation and will probably not listen to any other recommendation you make. Upselling aggressively. Every time the guest orders any dish or drink, you try to sell them a bigger or more expensive version of it, and visibly showing disappointment when the guest doesn't order what you have recommended, or when they don't order starters, mains, and desserts. The guests will feel extremely uncomfortable and will definitely not enjoy their meal, meaning they may leave earlier and spend less than they planned. Talking too long. This is not your time to shine and tell long-winded stories about each and every dish. Recommendations should be interesting and tailored to each guest, but should be no longer than 3 minutes altogether. The guest didn't come to the restaurant to listen to you. Using sneaky tactics. We've all seen that trick. A table of guests order a bottle of wine, and the colleague empties the bottle before getting back to the host, forcing them to order another bottle. This is a big no-no. Whether there are 2 or 20 people at the table, the wine that was ordered by the guest should be shared equally. Or opening bottle after bottle of water without asking the guest whether they would like more. And at the end of the evening, the guest is shocked by a massive water bill. Or the guest arrives and there is already a bottle of water on the table, and they assume it's free only to be surprised at the end of the evening when they're charged for it. The guest will not only refrain from coming back to your restaurant, but they will also warn their friends and family against coming. Overselling. When you know there is actually more than enough food for the guest already. For example, if the guest asks whether they can share a dish and you convince them that they have to order 1 dish each. The guests will be very disappointed when they receive 2 large dishes of food that they cannot finish. Or, if a dish is served with mashed potatoes, yet you convince the guest to order a side of mashed potatoes, and the guest ends up having more side dishes than they hoped for. This is terrible service, and the guest will probably not trust you or your restaurant ever again, and this word of mouth can be dangerous for business. Suggestive selling is sometimes not appropriate. You need to think about the capacity of your restaurant. Is it a slow Tuesday night or a busy Saturday? On a slow Tuesday night, it is appropriate to sell that extra dessert for $20. But on a Saturday night, when people are waiting at the door to be seated, you'd rather turn over the table for a group of new guests who will spend about $200. Of course, this does not mean that we'll chase guests away by looking irritated and impatient, or hang around their table until they ask for the bill. Even though some of these tactics can get you some quick cash once, it could be very detrimental to the business, perhaps even leaving you without a job in the future. Beware!